What is the Dhammapada, and why have its verses guided seekers for more than 2,000 years? For more than 2,000 years, people across the world have turned to this small collection of verses for guidance, clarity, and wisdom. Within its pages are some of the most well-known teachings attributed to the Buddha, teachings that have shaped spiritual traditions for centuries. But what exactly is the Dhammapada? And why has it remained so influential for more than 2 millennia? The Dhammapada is one of the most widely read texts in the Buddhist world. It is part of the Pali Canon, the earliest written collection of the Buddha's teachings. The word Dhamma refers to truth, teaching, or the natural law that governs life. Pada means verse, step, or path. Together, the title can be understood as the verses of truth. The Dhammapada contains 423 short verses arranged into thematic chapters. Each verse offers a teaching about the mind, suffering, wisdom, and the path to liberation. Rather than long philosophical explanations, the text speaks through short poetic reflections, lines that can be remembered easily and contemplated for a lifetime. Many verses focus on one central idea, the power of the mind. One famous verse begins this way: "Mind precedes all things. Mind is their chief. They are made by mind." This teaching reminds us that our experience of the world begins with the condition of our thoughts. Other verses speak about anger, compassion, discipline, and wisdom. They remind us that hatred never ends through hatred. Only through understanding and compassion can conflict come to an end. Because of its clarity and simplicity, the Dhammapada has been translated into many languages. It is studied by monks and scholars and read quietly by people searching for guidance in everyday life. Its wisdom is not meant only to be admired. It is meant to be practiced. In the next sections of this video, we will explore where the Dhammapada came from, how it was preserved, and why these ancient verses still speak to modern life. Because sometimes a single line of wisdom can change the direction of the mind. To understand the Dhammapada, we must begin not with a book, but with a voice. The teachings of the Buddha were not written down during his lifetime. For generations, they were preserved orally. Monks memorized them. They recited them in monasteries. Teachers passed them to students across centuries. After the Buddha's passing, his closest disciples gathered. This gathering is known in Buddhist tradition as the First Council. Its purpose was to ensure the teachings would survive. They organized them, they confirmed their accuracy, and they began the long work of preservation. For hundreds of years, the teachings traveled in this way, carried in memory rather than manuscript. This was not unusual in the ancient world. Many cultures preserved sacred knowledge through spoken recitation, trusting human memory and communal repetition to protect what mattered most. Around the 1st century BCE, in Sri Lanka, the Pali Canon was written down for the first time. A great council of monks gathered on the island. They feared that political instability and famine might break the oral lineages, so they inscribed the teachings onto palm leaves. This act of preservation would shape the course of Buddhist history. Among the texts recorded was the Dhammapada. It became part of the Khuddaka Nikaya, a section of the Pali Canon known as the Minor Collection. Despite its name, there was nothing minor about its influence. The Dhammapada would become one of the most widely read and most loved texts in all of Buddhism. As Buddhism spread across Asia, the Dhammapada traveled with it. Versions appeared in Sanskrit, Chinese, Tibetan, and many other languages. Across traditions, readers found the same essential insight. The path to freedom begins within the mind. Today, the Dhammapada has been translated into dozens of modern languages. It is studied in temples and universities, and read quietly by people seeking guidance in everyday life. Its origin in oral tradition gives the text a special quality. These are verses meant to be heard, not only read, repeated again and again until they become more than words, until they become understanding. The Dhammapada is a carefully arranged text. Its 423 verses are organized into 26 chapters. Each chapter carries a theme, a single word or idea used as a lens through which to examine the nature of the mind. The text begins with a chapter called the Twin Verses. These opening lines present the text's central argument in the starkest possible way. The mind shapes everything. Suffering and peace both arise from the same source, how we think. From there, the chapters move through a wide range of themes. Vigilance, the mind, flowers, the fool, the wise, the teacher. Each title becomes a doorway into a different aspect of human experience. Some chapters are gentle and poetic. Others are direct, even challenging. The chapter called The Thousands asks a sharp question. Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. This is a recurring quality in the Dhammapada. It does not flatter the reader. Instead, it asks us to look honestly at ourselves. Again and again, the text returns to the figure of the fool and the wise person. Not to judge, but to contrast, to show two different ways of moving through the world. One driven by craving and carelessness, the other shaped by clarity and compassion. The text concludes with a chapter on the Brahman. In this context, the word does not refer to social status. It refers to one who has crossed to the other shore, one who has found freedom. The final verses describe the qualities of a liberated mind with quiet reverence. A person who has let go of anger, who has let go of clinging, who has released all that causes harm. That is a Brahman. That is the destination the Dhammapada points toward. If there is one idea at the heart of the Dhammapada, it is this. The mind is the origin of everything we experience. Not circumstances, not fate, the mind. The very first verse of the Dhammapada states this clearly. Mind is the forerunner of all actions. All deeds are led by mind and created by mind. If one speaks or acts with a corrupted mind, suffering follows as the wheel follows the hoof of an ox. If one speaks or acts with a serene mind, happiness follows like a shadow that never departs. This is not a comfortable teaching. It does not blame others for our suffering. It does not search outward for the cause of our pain. Instead, it turns the gaze inward and asks a simple question. What is the quality of your mind right now? The Dhammapada often compares the untrained mind to a restless monkey. It jumps from branch to branch and never becomes still, always seeking, always craving, never satisfied. This is the mind that creates suffering for itself and others, not through malice, but through lack of awareness. The trained mind, by contrast, is described as a flame in still air, not extinguished, not wild, steady, clear, and luminous. The Dhammapada does not suggest that this steadiness comes through suppression. It comes through awareness, through watching the mind honestly, without judgment and without denial. One of the text's most striking images compares the mind to a mirror. A dirty mirror cannot show the truth of what stands before it. In the same way, a clouded mind cannot perceive things as they truly are. Meditation, the cultivation of virtue, and the careful examination of thought are all ways of cleaning that mirror. The Dhammapada does not teach that we must eliminate the mind. It teaches that we must understand it. The lotus rises from muddy water. In the same way, wisdom rises from the confusion and restlessness that cause suffering. The difference is not where we begin. The difference is the direction we choose to turn. Understanding the mind is one part of the Dhammapada's teaching. But wisdom alone is not enough. It must be lived. The Dhammapada is also a guide to how we act in the world, how we speak, how we treat others, and how we hold ourselves accountable for our choices. In Buddhist teaching, the path to liberation has three foundations: virtue or moral conduct, meditation or mental development, and wisdom, insight into the nature of reality. The Dhammapada reflects all three, but it speaks most directly about virtue, about the choices we make in ordinary moments. One of the most well-known verses in the entire text is almost startling in its simplicity. Do not do what is harmful. Cultivate what is good. Purify your mind. This is said to be the teaching of all the Buddhas, not a complex doctrine, not a metaphysical argument, a practical instruction for daily life. The Dhammapada pays careful attention to speech. Words spoken in anger carry the same energy as the fire that produced them. They spread, they burn, and they leave marks that are not easily healed. But words spoken with care and kindness are among the greatest gifts one person can offer another. The chapter on anger is among the most practical in the text. It does not ask us to suppress anger. It asks us to see it clearly, to recognize the moment it arises, and to choose in that moment whether to act from it. One verse expresses this plainly: conquer anger by non-anger, conquer evil by good. The Dhammapada is not a philosophy of withdrawal from the world. It does not teach us to detach from life or from others. Instead, it invites us to engage more fully, but from a place of greater clarity, from a mind less driven by craving and reaction, and more guided by understanding. Discipline is a recurring theme throughout the text. Not the discipline of rigid rules, but the discipline of returning. Returning to awareness when the mind wanders. Returning to kindness when frustration arises. Returning to honesty when it would be easier to look away. The path described in the Dhammapada is not a single journey. It is the practice of returning again and again to what is true. What does the Dhammapada mean by wisdom? It is not knowledge of facts, not the ability to argue or debate. Wisdom, in this text, is the capacity to see things as they truly are. To perceive impermanence without being overwhelmed by it, to understand suffering without being consumed by it, to recognize the interconnectedness of all things. The Dhammapada draws a sharp line between the fool and the wise. But this is not a judgment about intelligence. In the Dhammapada, the fool is someone who acts without awareness. Someone who follows craving without questioning it. Someone who mistakes what is harmful for what is pleasant, and what is painful for what is permanent. The wise person is not the one who knows more. It is the one who sees more clearly. Compassion runs through the Dhammapada like a quiet river. It is not always named directly, but it is present in the texture of nearly every teaching. Verse after verse returns to the same question. Are you causing harm? Are you reducing it? This is not about perfection. It is about direction. One verse compares the spiritually developed person to a lotus flower, born in water, growing through muddy water, rising above the surface to bloom in the light, yet remaining unsoiled by the water that gave it life. This is the vision of wisdom in the Dhammapada, to be fully present in the world, but not defined or controlled by its turbulence. Virtue is not a lofty ideal in this text. It is the practice of small choices made well. The choice not to speak harshly when you feel the urge. The choice to help when helping is possible. The choice to be honest when dishonesty would be easier. These small choices accumulate. Over time, they become character. Over a lifetime, they become the shape of a life. Wisdom in the Dhammapada is inseparable from relationship. You cannot truly understand your own suffering without recognizing it in others. You cannot cultivate compassion in isolation. It grows in contact with the world, in difficult encounters, in the moments that test your patience, in the places where your own limitations become visible. The Dhammapada teaches that wisdom, virtue, and compassion are not separate qualities. They are expressions of the same underlying understanding. When you begin to see clearly, acting with virtue becomes natural. When you act with virtue, compassion deepens. And as compassion deepens, the mind becomes more still and seeing becomes clearer still. A cycle not of suffering, but of gradual liberation. The Dhammapada was composed more than 2,000 years ago. It arose in a world very different from our own. There were no cities like we know them, no technology, no social media, and no endless streams of information. And yet, its teachings feel strikingly contemporary. The distracted, restless mind described in the Dhammapada is not unique to any era. It is part of the human condition. We have always craved, always worried, and often reacted before thinking, only to regret what followed. What has changed is the volume. The sheer number of things competing for our attention, the speed at which stimulation arrives, the difficulty of finding quiet. In this context, the Dhammapada does not feel like history. It feels like instruction for the present moment. Mindfulness, now practiced widely across the world, draws directly from the traditions that produced the Dhammapada. The observation of breath, the patient watching of thought, and the practice of returning to the present moment without harsh judgment are ancient tools. They work not because they are exotic, but because they address something fundamental in human nature. The global reach of the Dhammapada reflects something important. This text has been translated by scholars who had no interest in Buddhism and embraced by practitioners with no connection to Asian cultures. Its wisdom crossed those boundaries because it does not ask you to accept a particular set of propositions. It asks you to observe, to practice, and to notice what happens when you do. Perhaps the most honest thing that can be said about the Dhammapada is that its relevance cannot be argued for. It can only be experienced. You must read it slowly. Sit with a verse. Carry it through your day. And notice whether it illuminates something, whether it brings, however briefly, a small degree of clarity. We have traveled through the Dhammapada together. From its origins in the oral traditions of ancient India to its preservation across centuries. We have explored its teachings on the mind, the path, and the quiet work of ethical living. What the Dhammapada offers is not certainty. It does not promise an easy path. It does not offer shortcuts. What it offers is something more durable, a direction, a set of questions worth returning to, and a reminder that the quality of your life begins with the quality of your attention. If you read even a single chapter of the Dhammapada, let it sit with you. Do not rush to the next. These verses were not written for speed. They were written for depth, for the kind of slow reading that allows something to take root. The ancient monks who memorized these lines carried them not as information, but as medicine. Something to return to in moments of confusion. Something to steady the mind when steadiness felt impossible. That possibility remains open for all of us, right now. Thank you for watching. May your practice be gentle. May your mind find its stillness. And may these ancient words continue to illuminate the path ahead.